Okay, I want to go into a different direction today. I was reading about this. I already know what doublespeak is, but I saw something here that leads me into another subject that I really like to kind of take you down an interesting thought process. Okay, just a different way to look at things. Just kind of see if anybody can catch on to this concept. All right, so for anyone that doesn't know, I'll read the first part and then we'll go into the second part of this, and then we're going to go further from there down a rabbit hole. Okay, it's literally a rabbit hole. Doublespeak is a language that deliberately obscures, disguises, distorts, or reverses the meaning of words. Doublespeak may take the form of euphemisms. For example, downsizing for layoffs or servicing the target for bombing, okay? In which case it is primarily meant to make the truth sound more palatable. Like, sounds better than it is, essentially. It may also refer to intentional ambiguity in language, or to actual inversions of meaning. In such cases, doublespeak disguises the nature of truth. Doublespeak is most closely associated with political language. The word is comparable to George Orwell's newspeak and doublethink, as used in his book 1984, which I've brought up more than once. So y'all should really read that book if you have the time, if you haven't went back to work, or if you look for a new book. If you really haven't read that book, as much as YouTubers bring it up, there's a reason that we bring this book up, because it's very relatable to the times, even more so now than ever before. Continuing, though the term doublespeak does not appear directly, he uses other words like newspeak, doublethink, double talk. He's referring to doublespeak in the book. It goes further into that, but I'm going to move forward into this part. Terrence P. Morgan of the U.S. National Council of Teachers of English has compared the use of doublespeak in mass media to a set of laboratory experiments conducted on rats. In the experiment, a sample of rats was first deprived of food. Before, one group was fed sugar water, in the other group a saccharin solution. Saccharin is like artificial sugar, essentially. It's kind of an artificial sugar. Both groups exhibited behavior indicating that their hunger was satisfied, but the rats in the second group, which were fed the saccharin solution, died of malnutrition. Moraine parallels doublespeak's effects on the social masses to the second group of the rats upon whom an illusionary effect was created. He also highlights the structural nature of doublespeak and notes that the mass media and other social institutions employ an active, downward aim approach in managing the opinions of society at large. This is what it does, okay? I'm going to take this quote in the middle. This experiment suggests certain analogs between the environment created for the rats by the scientists and the environment created for us humans by language and the various mass media of communication. Like the saccharin environment, an environment created or infiltrated by doublespeak provides the appearance of malnourishment and the promise of survival. But the appearance is illusionary and the promise is false. So a good example of what's going on here could be really a lot of what's happened since the year 2020. We are hearing a lot of terms that are doublespeak. Okay, like we heard it during the COVID when it first started, and now that it's coming back. You know, everything they're asking us to do, everything related to public health and all this is a lot of doublespeak. A lot of the racial tensions and the words being used is a lot of serious doublespeak as well. I mean, I don't know if I want to bring it up specifically or not, but a good example of this and what I've seen happen in my neighborhood, okay, because I came back to my apartment in the city I've seen the effect of this because I live in low income housing, and I'm poor. I live with other poor people, and my neighborhood is like half black and half white, and we're all poor people. We're living in low income, So none of us are really much different than the other. None of us are any better than the other because we're all in here because we're all broke people. We're all poor people. We all need to be in this housing because we all can't pay regular rent. So none of us are any better than the other. But because of all the racial tension that's been created, most of us really have not treated each other any different. Now that I came back here, everybody's pretty cool. I'm cool with my neighbors. I don't treat my neighbors any different. All my kids, the kids don't care. The kids all play with each other all the same. It makes no difference who they are, what they look like, what color they are. Nobody cares. The adults, for the most part, are all, a lot of people know each other here. I don't really know anyone, but they all get along. It doesn't matter what color they are. It doesn't matter where they came from. But some of them I've noticed that have been affected by these racial tensions are, I've heard a couple times them parroting the word the Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter. I've heard that. And you can tell that those are the people that have been affected by the rise in racial tensions, and they are much more uptight and tense and suspect of the neighbors. They're more arguing with the neighbors, especially the white neighbors. I show up as a white person in my neighborhood. Even before I came back to my apartment, I had recently got moved from a different unit. So I moved over to this side of the apartment area where I wasn't here before. So it looks like I just moved here. They don't know me very well over here. And someone that I don't know well thought, they were like, didn't know me and took me the wrong way for sitting outside. And it's caused issues, He thought I was looking at him when I was looking at my kids at the park. I was trying to look forward. He thought I was looking towards him because our apartments kind of face each other. And it caused this whole, a very minor altercation. It really wasn't. We didn't argue. I just said, I'm sorry. I wasn't looking at you. I was looking over here. And we just let it go. But then he started parroting, over by his friends after that, like the Black Lives Matter and all this. I understood that he doesn't know me. I understood that there's a lot of tension. So I gracefully was just, I'm sorry that you felt that way. I was trying to watch my kids. I let it go. It was very, but it's causing problems. It's causing problems for the common man, okay? The common man or woman in the neighborhood. But we're all crammed in the city together. And nobody knows how to treat each other now. In some instances, some of us don't know how to treat each other because I want to be understanding to him because he doesn't know me. He's feeling confused because of all the racial tensions. I don't know what he's been watching. I don't know what his personal experiences with the people he knows in his neighborhood or where he's from. I mean, I know he lives here now, but I don't know where he's from, what he's lived through. I don't know him. He doesn't know me. He doesn't know what I'm thinking. I look like some white lady sitting on my porch. It causes problems. And on top of that, having us all crammed in the city has psychological effects, I think. And this scientist comparing us to rats in an experiment got me to thinking that I have seen another study. It was a rat experiment they did in the 1950s. They were studying how a rat city, comparing it to a metropolitan area and how people would do. And it's very striking. So I want to show you something I found. I've seen this before. So I want to play some of this. I'm not going to play the whole thing. And I want you guys to compare. I'm probably going to have to start this over. Ads. I'm probably going to have to start this over, but you'll see. Tell me if you haven't noticed some of this behavior happening to the population, okay? And then I'm going to go from here. I'm going to show you a couple other things, and we'll wrap this up. But it's quite intriguing, really. this is down the rabbit hole. I'll link this video below. This is a channel that does a lot of different things.
Of the strange research to come out of mid-1900s America, there is little with a legacy as enduring or as terrifying as the Mouse Utopia Experiments. Taking place throughout the 50s, 60s, and early 70s, the grim fate of the subjects was published in the national magazine Scientific American, and the experiments themselves were largely taken as apocalyptic portents. In a post-war United States, the language used to describe the results such as behavior sync became synonymous with fears of an overpopulated world and violent, deviant behavior in cities. Today, they are preserved within fiction, such as Channel 4's conspiracy thriller Utopia and the classic animated movie The Secret of Nim.
Our world began changing.
So what were the Mouse Utopia Experiments? Shortly after World War II, a group known collectively as the Environmentalists were making a large push to prevent environmental degradation, as well as overexploitation of the planet's renewable resources. Among these people were a group specifically known as the Neo-Malthusians, a term referring to the 18th and 19th century English scholar Thomas Robert Malthus. Malthus proposed that while the world's population may increase exponentially, food production can only increase linearly, leading to an eventual subsistence-level existence for the human race that became known as a Malthusian catastrophe. While advancements such as the Green Revolution saw that this didn't come about, the Neo-Malthusians acknowledged his concerns about overpopulation and feared that this pattern would result in the collapse of civilization or, at best, have extreme adverse effects. These fears were given a platform in writing of the time, especially in works such as William Folkt's Road to Survival in 1948, and perhaps most famously, Silent Spring by Rachel Carson in 1962. Before the movement's explosion of popularity in the 50s and 60s, however, researchers had already begun work investigating the effects of population growth, and among them was a man named John B. Calhoun. Born in 1917, Calhoun took an early interest in science, specifically ornithology, publishing his first paper on birds when he was 15, but over time, his interest would change. By the time he received his PhD, his focus had turned to ethology, the study of animal behavior. When his education was concluded, he moved with his family to Towson, Maryland, to begin research at Johns Hopkins University in nearby Baltimore, but the research itself would be conducted much closer to home. In 1947, shortly after he arrived, he approached his neighbor about using some of their neglected property for an experiment. The scope would be massive, and according to Calhoun, his neighbor probably didn't expect such a scale when they agreed to let him use the forested area. Taking over a quarter of an acre, Calhoun constructed a massive habitat, complete with food, water, ample shelter, and protection from predators, with the only limiting condition being their restriction to the quarter-acre living space. He affectionately provided his enclosure a name, Rat City. Unfortunately, no publicly available images of Rat City exist. Calhoun was very familiar with Norway rats, having performed research on them for his doctorate, and he estimated that Rat City could sustain approximately 5,000 individuals, though if they reached this number, the population density would be tight. He began by placing 5 pregnant females in the enclosure, providing ample genetic diversity, and soon the population was increasing exponentially. But then something surprising happened. Rather than the population increasing to fill the space of the enclosure, it quickly leveled off at 150 members. He also noted some behavioral peculiarities. Despite the large size of Rat City, the residents seemed to gather around just a few places, forming social groups of 12 and limiting themselves to specific feeding locations. He would conclude the experiment after 2 years and 4 months, during which the population never grew over 200. Careful observation revealed the cause: high infant mortality. For some reason, as the experiment progressed and the population increased, the mothers were not caring for their young properly, leading to most of them dying before reaching maturity. Calhoun had his theories as to why this was, but to prove them, he would need more data. In 1954, about 5 years after his initial experiment concluded, he was hired by the National Institute of Mental Health, often shortened to NIM. Within the laboratory of psychology, Calhoun was given ample resources to continue his work. With a team, he began feverishly designing and constructing habitats, sometimes referred to as universes, where he performed numerous smaller-scale and more controlled versions of his original rat study on a domesticated strain of albino Norway rat. These rats would want for nothing. All physical needs for a healthy rat lifestyle would be provided for them, including food, water, climate control, and nesting material. Calhoun spent 8 years perfecting his enclosures and methods until finally, in February of 1962, an article of his writing was published in the magazine Scientific American. The article was entitled Population Density and Social Pathology. His opening paragraph ominously reads so, quote, "In the celebrated thesis of Thomas Malthus, vice and misery impose the ultimate natural limit on the growth of populations. Students of the subject have given most of their attention to misery, that is, to predation, disease, and food supply as forces that operate to adjust the size of a population to its environment. But what of vice? Setting aside the moral burden of this word, what are the effects of the social behavior of a species on population growth, and of population density on social behavior?" Unquote. To answer this question, he cited 6 of his experiments in particular, all with similar composition and concerningly similar results. The design of these habitats was simple. The layout was a rectangle measuring 10 feet by 14 feet, divided into 4 equal sections by electric fences. 3 of these fences sported bridges over which the rats could climb, while one fence lacked such a bridge, essentially creating one long space that wrapped in on itself. Each section was equipped similarly, with a food hopper, water, and nesting areas accessible by spiral staircases. But Calhoun, leveraging his experience with the rats, made special changes to encourage specific behaviors. He enticed the rats to use one of the center pens by making the spiral staircase to that pen's living spaces shorter than the others, though he admits this was a comparatively small factor. But the more insidious change was to their food supply. In half of the experiments, Calhoun supplied powdered food, but in the other half he placed feeders of his own design, consisting of hard pellets behind a wire mesh. Half of his experiments began with 32 mice, the other half with 56, of evenly male and female composition, and all having just reached maturity. Calhoun estimated that approximately 40 rats could comfortably be housed in these enclosures, but he would allow these populations to increase to 80 before he would cull them. Almost immediately after introduction, things began to go awry. The females, unsurprisingly, spread themselves out somewhat evenly through the pens, but after the males jockeyed for dominance and those of highest rank were determined, they began to distribute themselves strangely. Less dominant male rats will typically awaken earlier and begin to wander and forage for food, and due to the design of the pen, this meant that they usually would end up in the center sections to eat. During this time, the dominant males of the outer pens would wake up and begin guarding their respective territories. Since there was only one entrance ramp to either end, the dominant males of either pen would bar the return of the less dominant males, forcing the male population to clump in the center pens, while the dominant end males protected what came to be their harems. Only a few other deferential males were allowed to remain. These few remaining males began exhibiting odd behavior, though they would spend most of their time in the burrows with the females, hiding away from the dominant male. They would never attempt to mate with any of them. Instead, perplexingly, they would try to mate with the dominant male, and even more perplexing, the dominant male would not fight these attempts. At the same time as this was happening, the effect of Calhoun's special feeders was taking hold. Since procuring food was such a lengthy process at the hard food feeders, it was common for one rat to join another while in the process of feeding. By this method, the rats slowly became conditioned to eating in the company of other rats until, eventually, the rats would refuse to eat unless another rat was present. Since more rats tended to be in the center pens, this behavior meant that, over time, more and more rats made their way there, further condensing them. This heightened the proximity of an already cramped population. In the experiments with the powdered food, this effect was far less pronounced. With these factors combined, Calhoun noted what he called a behavioral sink, or an increase in pathological activity in the rats due to the stress involved in such high population density. For the females, the behavioral sink manifested in reduced capacity for nest building and young rearing. Infant rats are extremely dependent upon their mothers for nearly all things. However, under the effects of the behavioral sync, the mothers would often be interrupted in their nest-building practices to engage in some other social activity. As time wore on, this led to sparser nests which could not house the young properly. If a mother decided to move her litter, she often would only move some of them or scatter them about the pen in separate locations. What's more, when female rats are ready to mate, the males can sense it, and the enclosed space meant that a female could not escape the continuous advances of the males during these periods. Even when they would enter their nests for a reprieve, they would be followed in and harrowed. These factors together resulted in an extremely high infant mortality rate, in one case reaching 96%. For the males, this manifested in different ways. The dominant males would occasionally lash out in violence against the other members of the pen, including infants, often biting and wounding their tails. Among the lower class males were three groups. The first he described as the homosexuals, which he immediately corrects as pansexuals, who would not compete for status but would often attempt to mate with any other rat, regardless of gender or age. Much like in the end pens, these advances went unchallenged. The second group he described as somnambulists, who moved slowly through the pen without interacting with other individuals in any fashion, and the other rats in turn ignored them, except in rare circumstances. These rats externally he described as fat, sleek, and healthy looking. But to him, the strangest group was the third, which he named the probers. These rats were hyperactive, hypersexual, and pansexual. Despite violence from the dominant males, they would viciously pursue females in heat, eschewing any sort of courtship ritual and following them into their burrows to mate. Later on in the experiments, they would often find the corpses of the improperly cared for young, which they would cannibalize. In time, one of Calhoun's assistants would publicly describe these pens as hell. At this point, Calhoun ended the experiments, but he predicted that these pathological changes would have eventually led to the deaths of the colonies. At their conclusion, he would take the 4 healthiest males and females and allow them to breed, but their behavior had been so inexorably altered that none of their pups survived beyond weaning.
So, yeah. Interesting experiment. This video goes on. If you want to check out the full thing, I will have the link below, but it's not good to have such cramped population density, and it's a little rough on mental health. But with that in mind, I wanted us to keep in mind that it's one of the sustainability goals of the UN to have us all in major cities cramped together. So briefly, they keep in mind that they've framed this to sound better. But if you want to look into it further, there's a lot of other people that have covered this in depth about the Agenda 21 sustainability goals. So if you look up Agenda 21 and goal number 11, you'll get a lot of more in-depth research. So this is just what they have posted on the website. But to give you an idea where they're going with this, more than half of us live in cities. By 2050, 2/3 of all humanity, 2.6 billion people. So they've predicted how many people there's going to be. I don't know how they got to that. Will be urban. Sustainable development can't be achieved without significantly transforming the way we build and manage our urban spaces. The rapid growth of cities, a result of rising population and increasing migration, has led to a boom in mega cities, especially in the developing world, and slums are becoming a more significant feature, right? So blah, blah, blah. Facts and figures. In 2018, 4.2 billion people, that's 55% of the world's population, lived in cities. It says by 2050, they want to have 4.5 billion people in cities. Cities occupy just 3% of the Earth's land, but account for 60 to 80% of the energy consumption. So, yeah. 33. Let's see what this one says. In 1990, there are 10 cities with 10 million people, or more. And by 2014, the number of megacities rose to 28, and was expected to reach 33 by 2018. Interesting. In the future, 9 out of 10 megacities will be in the developing world. So anyway, yeah. They're really pushing for the megacities. So what does it look like when people live in big cities? I found a really interesting video just to close this out. I found a protest and a counter protest occurring simultaneously. And this girl goes through and interviews them on both sides. And I just want you to look at all the different encounters that this woman has with all these people at these two simultaneous protests happening, okay? And like I said, I might have to restart this video because okay, watch this. This is just...
I like to sing. Pretend.
This is a pub hood. It's a kink thing. I'm from the queer kink community, kind of broadly speaking.
And kazoo.
You guys have some whistles. What are these for?
These are kazoos.
Oh, like the kazoo boy. You've got a kazoo as well.
I don't know how it works.
I wouldn't be able to tell you, but
Right?
do you feel like the kazoo boy?
No.
Hey guys, it's Kez. I'm here in Boston at the Straight Pride Parade where there is massive counter-protest going on. It is wild. I've got a lot of crazy footage. I hope you guys enjoy this video. Can you tell me a little bit about why you guys have come out
It's freezing up. I don't know why.
today?
Because these motherfuckers can't just come out here, like, and not have someone else, like, saying no.
Right.
These guys can't just be accepted to go do whatever the they want. Like,
Okay.
those people.
They were having this wonderful douchebag pride parade, and all these douchebags came out and wanted to show what great douchebags they were, and they're douchebaggery.
It's not normal. It should not be normal to have that many people show up against the lesbian, gay, trans community is wrong. Those straight people are not oppressed in this country, and so there's no such thing as straight pride. Like, straight pride is every f***ing day here.
They made a parade to boycott another parade. So that alone.
What pride were they boycotting?
So there's the pride parade that they had a couple of months ago. So this parade is to boycott that parade, pretty much. So this.
Oh, but that one already happened.
Yeah, so the one that already happened. So this parade.
But how are they boycotting it then?
The straight parade, the Nazis. So they're calling it a straight parade because they're promoting straight pride when that's not the only pride that's going on in the world.
We are in Fascism 101 in the United States right now, and these folks don't even understand that.
Fascism is wonderful.
Why is fascism wonderful?
Gets things done.
It gets people murdered. As long as you don't hurt someone, it's not any of my f***ing
Proud of
business.
it. Do what you do in private. I don't want to know about
You
it.
know what?
I don't want
You know what? Your comfort is not the most important thing on this planet. No, it isn't. The world is not f***ing about you. You have to share the planet, grow up, and get over it. You're much older than me. Grow the f*** up. Get over it. Other people exist. You don't get to win anymore. Back the f*** away from me. You don't scare me. I've seen scarier men. You're not f***ing frightening me. Get the f*** out of my face.
Whoa!
Don't
Back
hit
up.
me.
Back up.
You know, he was one who
Back
came
up.
at me.
One thing that I find really interesting about this march is that the leader of it is Milo Yiannopoulos, who's actually a gay man. Do you aware that?
So yeah, he doesn't understand at all how his sexuality means that you should be in line with people that are oppressed instead of actually being an oppressor, but that's white supremacy for you.
Oh, are you a gay man as well?
Yes, I am.
This is a gay man for Trump. Are you also a gay man for Trump? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are not brave enough to say they are.
A really cute accent.
Australian.
Oh, yeah. Australian accent's big enough.
How is it being right side up?
Well, sorry?
Is it unusual being right side up?
I guess so.
How long are you in town for?
Till Sunday.
Till Sunday? You got time to hang out before then?
Well, I would need to see your face first.
Ah, man, but that's the thing. That's kind of...
This is like dating in the dark. It's a what?
He's got an ugly face, but a huge I've seen it.
Because everyone is swarming around the police, shouting. I don't know why they're saying, let them go. I think people just got arrested. That's why. Hey, did someone just get arrested?
Yeah.
Oh my.
Yeah, we all got assaulted back there.
You got assaulted?
We all did, and
I didn't see it.
Them two got tied down for it.
So who just got arrested?
2 protesters don't know.
Protesting the event.
Yep.
Do you know them?
Nope.
Why did they get? Were they being violent, or what was happening? Why did they get arrested?
Ambushed at last minute, and we didn't even see it coming, and then that's when they got arrested.
You got ambushed. Wow. Where were they hiding?
Well, they started all down there.
The Straight Pride Parade March? Straight Pride is different. I didn't even see that. Hey, awesome. Hey, you guys look like scouts, like Boy Scouts. I'm not with anyone. My name's Kezia.
Okay.
Yeah. But hey, cool. I like outfits. The Boy Scouts are out. What's happening? Oh, the police are coming. The police are coming. Oh my gosh. Hey, so much drama, isn't it?
Who are you with?
I'm with myself. My name's Kezia.
Sorry, I'm not going to talk to you.
Okay, that's fine.
The fucking riot cops, them.
The gays that have, and people of the LBGT community, so.
Fascist organizers.
Nazis, like they killed people.
Yeah.
You're right for president of America under the Libertarian Party.
The groups that are organizing this thing over there are known neo-Nazi and fascist groups.
So your doctor said that you have a growth on your penis.
Solidarity, you know? Like I have knowledge about certain growths that are benign, and I can help my comrades.
Now I know why you have your faces covered.
Yes.
Yeah.
But do you know what? I want to tell you one thing. Do not be ashamed of that growth. Because there are a lot of people, maybe even watching this, who have that same thing. And by you speaking out...
Do not be ashamed.
Yeah.
If you have a growth, that's okay.
So to show these people that you are not ashamed of your growth, let's see your face.
No.
I mean, I have a growth right now.
That was wild.
This is where
What?
America's at. This is where we're at. And I'm terrified. I am never gonna reproduce. Like this.
Wait, you actually aren't gonna have kids?
I'm literally never. I'm gonna adopt dogs for the rest of my life.
For real?
Yes.
How old are you?
I'm 34.
No.
Yes. I'm 34 years old. I am never having children.
What?
Ever.
I know what's going on. They're looking for my ex-boyfriend. He's most wanted.
They're looking for him.
Yeah.
Where is he?
I don't know.
You can tell me.
If I knew, I tell you guys, but I don't know.
Why are they looking for him? Did he do something wrong?
I don't know. Went to the Whittier Street Heart Center. It's a clinic.
Yeah.
And he was disappeared. So
Wait, so he's actually missing?
yeah,
Okay, so you think that maybe he's dead?
could be.
Oh.
Has no room for any more Nazis.
Okay. What would you define as a Nazi? Because I know there are a lot of people, I guess typically you would think of like Nazi Germany Nazis. How are you defining the Nazis today?
I'm really defining them exactly the same way.
Okay.
And I have no tolerance for them.
No space for Nazis. No tolerance for Nazis. No space for Nazis. Hey, hey, hey. Goodbye. Tolerate my words. Can't you tolerate the gospel?
Because you're big against
No tolerance for Nazis. Hey, goodbye.
Why do they want you to leave?
I'm just talking about God's love. I'm telling them that God loves them, that God wants them to draw near to Him, and that He wants us all to repent of our sin.
Ambushed at last minute, and we didn't even see it coming.
I guess it's... No, at the end of the day, if God is with you, who could be against you?
We're almost out of here. That's true. You might leave without getting beat. So what is your main reason for wanting to get this guy out of this area?
Because he keeps f***ing harassing protesters.
Okay,
We don't want him here.
Okay, what are some things that he's saying that are really hurtful or harassful?
No more comments.
Okay, that's fine.
Sometimes I get a little quiet. when I meet lots of new kids.
Are you talking about Donald Trump? Yes. Would you refer to him as a Nazi as well?
I would say he's definitely a fascist.
Okay.
And, you know, somebody that reads Mein Kampf when they go to bed at night, I would have to say, yeah.
He treats David Duke like family. Like, Donald Trump is absolutely a fascist. He was long before he ever ran for president.
Right.
Nazis don't belong in this city.
Nazis don't belong. What's the definition of a Nazi? Who's a Nazi?
A hater. The worst haters.
Right.
That hates all people.
So the people who were just screaming at that man are those Nazis?
Sitting in Washington and makes fun of a disability person.
Right.
That's a Nazi.
So if I may...
Who follows the pattern of Hitler.
Oh, okay.
Picking on the women and making fun of the Pope, even if he's not Catholic.
Okay, so if you make fun of the Pope, you're a Nazi?
Well, it depends.
We got assaulted by the cops as we tried to block from going. Yes.
What? So they hit you?
Yes, they choked me.
chokeslammed them.
Wow. Why were you blocking? What was happening?
We did not want the cops to keep coming this way.
Oh, okay. Oh, and so they basically were like, move, and then you guys didn't move, and so they started to assault you?
Yes.
Okay. Do you think that they did the right thing, or what they did was wrong?
What they did was wrong. I think it's always wrong to assault somebody. I'm here non-violently.
Right. And I guess, like, on the other side, the police would be like, hey, you're in our way, like, you need to move. They would probably think it was their right to move you, right?
They're trying to clear the street for Nazis, like, who cares?
It's documented that a huge proportion of police, especially more in the past, but even now, they try to hide it now, but they are Klan members. And also, they're protected.
Like of the KKK?
Yes, KKK.
The police?
Not every cop, of course, you know. I gotta say that.
Wait, how did that come out?
I'm not sure. It's kind of common knowledge.
The only immigration he supports is women that were models that he wanted to marry and then treat like crap in public. That just like is totally on par for the course, because treating women as complete garbage is all part of Nazism as well.
He's also a rapist. Like, let's never forget that he's a rapist.
Right.
Yes, he is. And I can't believe that people are like, oh, that's okay.
When people go, oh, it's okay that he's a rapist.
Christians, oh, that's okay. Yeah. If he wanted to rape my daughter, that'd be fine.
Yeah. Who is saying that? I would never let anyone rape my daughter. Where is that coming from?
That's craziness.
Yeah. So I'm unfamiliar with the rape cases, actually. I haven't heard of those myself.
I believe there have been 13 allegations.
Yeah.
So...
But any of them, did they go to trial or anything?
It doesn't matter.
Oh, okay.
It really doesn't matter to me.
So what podcast are you from? Like, what are you doing?
I don't have a podcast. And this
So
is...
why are you sticking in my face like that?
Oh, this is just my phone. I just use it to record because it's really loud. I don't have a microphone. And my friend...
What are you recording for?
YouTube. Yeah, so close. It's not podcast.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're getting ad money from this, right?
Sorry?
You're getting ad money from
No,
this.
I don't have enough subscribers. So, unfortunately. But yeah. Do you have a YouTube channel?
Yeah.
What's it called?
I don't want to tell you.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
Sorry.
Do you get ad money from it as well?
Yes.
Nice. How did you break up?
It was really hard. His boss came out from jail.
Oh.
And...
So his boyfriend was in jail, and then he started dating you, and then his boyfriend came out of jail, and that's why you had to break up.
He has to break up just because he wanted protecting me.
That's fair enough. I can understand that, but that's still really hard.
Yeah, it is.
I'm really sorry to hear that.
Now, you know, even if we are not together, I wanna know where he is.
You want to know he's safe.
That he's alive.
Yeah.
Even if you have to go to jail, but I have a special love for him.
Right. Okay. What's his name?
Anthony Matranga.
Okay. If anyone has seen Anthony, then let us know.
Please.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
No worries. Hey, appreciate it. Hey guys, we are right now following Antifa. A couple guys, some little stragglers. I think they might be going to get some milkshakes. I don't know, but I'm just following along, and we'll see where it leads me. If you like this video, make sure you like and subscribe. Bye.
Make America great again. Trump 2020.
I'm glad you came along, partner.
Oh my god. So, yeah. If that's not a case for the I don't know, for the experiment of population density in society, for like having people in dense cities, is that affecting people and their judgment and their capacity to function in society? I don't know, but it appears to me that something isn't right. So that's all.